There's always a delay here. Got it. Hey, this takes me so long. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Quest Show. I am Lana Quest, your host, and this is my co-host,
Honor. Here.
Yes, look everyone, we have a guest in the building. Ruby Powell-Dennis by way of Tennessee. She is running for State Senate, Tennessee, District 31. She is also the founder of Elect Black Women. We are going to get into our interview with her in one moment. You all know the routine. Come on. Thumbs up, share this video, please subscribe, please. And we can just get in, right? Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah. Hi, Ruby, how are you?
Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you for coming. So can you tell everyone how you got into politics, how you found yourself here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I come from a family of very involved community leaders. I like to use community leaders because I feel like even the term activist is loaded now. It can mean lots of different things. And so I'm a descendant of the Deacons of Defense. And so the Deacons of Defense were known in Louisiana for providing protection to civil rights leaders who were coming and meeting with communities that were segregated to help them better understand their rights. You know, some of the very same things we are still fighting about to this day: voting rights, getting people registered to vote, and getting, Black people on the ballot and fighting for a more representative democracy. And so that's what I was born and raised in. I grew up in a rural community in Louisiana, but Memphis is home for me now. It's my chosen home. I like to tell people Memphis picked me. Yeah. I was a young woman. I had a chance to go to a really amazing university for my undergraduate experience. I was the first person in my family really to go to a PWI. Everybody else, I was supposed to be a third generation Southernite. People still give me a hard time about that, but I've done my time at the Bayou Classic. So, I went to the University of Florida, and during that time, Florida it is known to just educate some of the most promising leaders in our country. Mm-hmm. And so, I tell folks, Nikki Fried, who's running for governor in Florida, is a classmate of mine. She was a few years ahead of me. And there's just been a number of individuals who've been elected to office all over, judges all over the South, who are my classmates. So that's where I got my start in electoral politics, but it's also where I saw disparity. And so the work I do now, that's what it stemmed from, my experience as a Black woman, a young Black woman in politics in Florida. I would look to my left and right, and people were either older or white, or older and white. The very few Black elected officials, or even elected officials of color, much less women, were few and far in between. And so I knew that couldn't be right when you talk about, again, a representative democracy. That is not how things should look, because, you can't get out what ain't in a pipeline in terms of talent. So fast forward, like I said, Memphis is home now. I moved here over a decade ago. It was a divine appointment. I got an opportunity to work in the educational system here, serving, Black and brown students who look like me, who in some aspects their lives were like mine, but in a lot of aspects they were not. I saw over and over and over where parents in Memphis, North Memphis, wanted good things for their kids. They had done nothing wrong, and simply because of the zip code they lived in, they weren't getting resources, and that had been the case for quite some time. And again, this is in a city that's majority Black. This is in the South, and this is in, the 21st century. And so I knew that something had to give. And that's when I actually made the pivot back to politics. Again, having done it as an undergraduate, having worked on campaigns, but just having finally got to a point where I was like, look, this is not it. It's not serving students and families. And that's when I ran for office. And I've been just doing that work ever since, helping other Black women along the way through my organization, Elect Black Women PAC. And then, of course, being on the ballot again this year, because we still have a lot of unfinished business in Tennessee.
Right. That's great. And I have the perfect segue. So as we know, a lot of people don't understand how important local government is, can you just explain to them the difference between the US Senate and the state Senate?
So there's three levels of government. So there's like municipal, which is like city, county-wide positions, the day-to-day, they take care of potholes and things like that. You have your state legislature. So that's the state house and state senate, the upper and lower chamber. They take care of statewide legislative business, policies on the books, anything having to do with the state's constitution, and anything that really touches the lives of, everyday Tennesseans, whether you vote or not. And then there's a federal level, the United States House and United States Senate, the upper and lower chamber. And so right now we have 0 women in the Senate because Vice President Kamala Harris is now, of course, working in the White House. And so we have a record number of Black women running for Congress, the lower house, the House of Representatives, and then just a number of Black women like myself running for state legislative positions across the country to, again, be in our upper and lower house, but at the state level.
Right. Yeah, and those are the people that are trying to change our voting laws.
Absolutely. I mean, for quite some time, we just didn't do the work we needed to do to build infrastructure and to protect voting rights at the state level. And unfortunately, we have seen now where, there are hundreds of state legislative seats up on the ballot, but in places like Tennessee, where I live, we have what is called a Republican supermajority, which means that if we in Tennessee try to do what the Democrats in Texas did and walk out to block legislation, we couldn't because we simply lack the votes to even make a difference. Republicans can pass legislation through both houses and get it to the governor's desk, who is also Republican, without Democrats having supported it. So it's one of those where in order for a democracy to work, it has to be balanced. It can't be all of one opinion or all of another. And we know where that leads us, right? We've seen since 2016 that our country is more divisive than it's ever been. All the data, whether you're looking at it from an economic perspective, a culture perspective, or just a humanitarian and human rights perspective, we are trending downward as a nation right now. And so state legislative seats matter quite a bit. And when those are not balanced, we see the impact during COVID, right? When we could not get federal mandates passed for vaccines, we could not get federal, work to move because of our, at the time, the president had a different set of priorities. It got pushed down to states' rights. And now all of a sudden you had 50 governors making decisions for America in lieu of a federal mandate. So, state legislative races matter. Stacey Abrams is running for governor. That matters. We've never had a Black woman serve as governor. But again, when it's time for decisions to be made at the state level, states' rights is a big part of how our country functions. And so again, when you don't have a representative state legislature, you don't get balanced policy. And that's where you see policy failure.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, so one of the things that the state legislature does handle is the redistricting. And that is going on because of the census that took place in every state right now. And I noticed that Tennessee, along with some other states out there, are having their fair share of woes as far as having the maps drawn equitably to represent Black and Brown people. Where does that stand right now? And what, like you said, because there is a Republican supermajority, is there anything that can be done to stop these maps from really just being put in place and diluting the vote of people of color?
Yep. So I'm so glad you asked me this question, and I have so much to say. A couple of things. One, I have to acknowledge the reality of it. The harvest that we are reaping today, those seeds were sown quite some years ago. The best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The second best time is to plant it today. So from this moment forward, we are planting seeds for, a few years from now. And we have to acknowledge that because, again, these fights around redistricting, equitable maps, you got to have people on it. It's not we woke up today, let's take care of it, right? So this work started during the census. Under former President Trump, he reduced the number of days that the census was even available. There were concerns around ICE raids, whether or not you would be deported if you completed the census. Every time you have someone, again, who has a vendetta and who's creating, roadblocks to people just providing a census, which is required per, federal legislation. Like, we have to do a census every 10 years, right? As a country, we've been doing it for decades. This is not new. So when you have barriers at that level, it has impact down ballot. And what I mean by that is So now you have fewer people counted. So you can say, oh, these communities are not as diverse, right? Because this was the first census where everybody pretended like we knew our country was,
Right.
we were like, we could
Right.
walk around San Francisco and know, like Miami, Memphis, you can walk around and see our country's diverse. And so, you know, when you have census data that doesn't match what the community looks like, then you have legislators who are drawing their own maps, again, states' rights, right? There's no federal mandate around maps. It's kind of like states can do what they want. Republican supermajority here in Tennessee, they drew maps that are protecting individuals like the incumbent I'm running against, who is indicted, by the way, right? And so you have a legislature that is protecting an incumbent who is under federal indictment for campaign finance, who is raising money for his state Senate race right now. That's what you get when you don't have people who are on it. And unfortunately, you know, it's a situation where the best we can do right now is fight the maps with legislation. We've seen some success in other places where they've been able to freeze the maps for a certain period of time because the maps can't go in effect. Right now, we're still, you know, it's going to go to the governor's desk if it hasn't already for signature. And that's when the legal battle will start. And I'll just be very candid. I am very thankful. Chairman Remus, who serves as chair of the Tennessee Democratic Party, he was elected at their, you know, the beginning of last year. Him and his team, they've done a really good job. As a person who's on the ballot, I feel like I can say like my state party is an example of the future. You know, it's a bunch of us who are, you know, on the younger side of politics in terms of age,
Right.
but who know what they're doing, who have a heart for, you know, statewide organizing work. And so even though we're facing some pretty, you know, some difficult challenges with the maps, and it's not just affecting us, right? Like it's impacting incumbents. And so we had a situation where we lost a Democratic district altogether here in Memphis. And so, you know, that's one less representative we have, and we only had 26. You know, and they're looking to do the same thing with our Senate districts. And so again, you know, when you have all of these things happening, that's how you end up with people who believe one set of ideology, and they then, you know, spread that ideology permanently through legislation that could take generations to get off the books. So we've got our work cut out, but that's why investing in candidates who are running for state legislatures, candidates who are flipping districts from red to blue is a big priority for the Democratic Party this cycle. And we're already starting to see the fruits of that down ballot.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can we switch off a little bit and go into some environmental racism?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Let's preach on it.
Let's go. Well, so I just learned this. I guess Memphis has very high rates of asthma. And in fact, Memphis used to be called the asthma capital.
Yes.
Did not know that.
I did not know that either. Yes. That is crazy. And a lot of it is coming from just the structure, right? Leaking water, pests, like people don't know, like rats, roaches, mice, all that contribute to asthma. So if elected, how would you solve this problem? Because a lot of it's from unsafe housing,
Yeah. So thank you for this question. So first I'll start by sharing, you know, when I was an elementary school administrator, I worked at the community I worked in, 38127, is one of the most under-resourced and impoverished zip codes in Shelby County. So a lot of what you're talking about, it was the lived experience of my students and their families every single day. So this issue is very close to home. And when you said asthma, I am a lifelong, you know, I've struggled with asthma my entire life. As an administrator, I had the CHAMPS program, which is the asthma program at Lana and Honor, come, you know, to meet with families, to educate them on how to treat asthma, because a child can have an asthma attack in code really quickly. And we were seeing where some of our students were missing 30, 40 days of school because we have so many seasons that change, plus all the things, environmental things you name. And so students were just missing and falling behind, you know, academically as elementary students because of this health condition. And so I say that to say, one, I want to continue to support organizations like CHAMP and Lana and Honor, because they are pushing in. They have mobile units that come to schools, that talk with families, and they're doing a lot of work to better educate families on how do you take care of your child, how do you take care of yourself if you have this chronic health condition. And so I think like that access, medical care in low-income communities, under-resourced communities, continues to be a high priority in Shelby County, and that'll continue to be a high priority once I'm elected. The other part of it is that, I mean, recently it was announced there is a Superfund site in Cordova, not too far from where I live, and it's in district. And when you drive out there, it's industrial land. They've built things over it, but now there's questions about whether it's leaking or not. There are a number of homes, very nice. You're talking hardworking people, bought their home, taking care of their kids, public school education, you know. And so I say that to say, one, we just have to do a better job in terms of abatement and holding organizations, whether it's working with TDEC or whoever it needs to be, accountable for the Superfund sites. If there is money in the American Rescue Plan or other federal legislation that's already been approved, you know, and signed, those monies should be going to abatement and making those places and communities safe and keeping them safe. The other thing is that we, you know, because of the Flint water situation in Shelby County, they did a deep dive to check the pipes in our largest school district, Shelby County, well, Memphis, Shelby County schools as of today. And so, you know, I'm thankful that there's a task force of teachers, community leaders, working with Mayor Lee Harris to have a task force that specifically looks at lead pipes in public buildings, particularly where vulnerable populations and marginalized people live. So I say all that to say, half the battle is making sure you know what's happening in your community in terms of resources, and then amplifying the good work. Because we, you know, I'm not a leader who tries to manifest in a lane that is not mine. Instead, I say, who's already doing transformative work? How can we get them more resources so they can reach more people in an intentional way? And then how can we make sure that those organizations, entities, political agencies are doing sustainable work? Because this is intergenerational work that is directly, again, impacting Black and Brown people, individuals who are victims of poverty, and individuals who can't move away easily because, you know, home value, personal wealth is tied to where you live. And so we have to be mindful of all of those things and work with partners who understand that.
And it goes back to like local government again, because these Republicans are not trying to put regulations on these companies. They don't care where these companies are dumping. They don't care where these highways are being built, and they're being built right through people's neighborhoods. So you spend that money, you buy your house. Like you said, you don't have money to leave or sell your house, and you're just taking in all of this stuff. And that's been, you know, poor people, people of color, our problem. Like, it's like, no, it's the way you eat. No, it's the way you're living. No, it's the environment is killing us. It's not what we're eating. It's not the barbecue ribs. Well, maybe, but
it's not the entirety of it.
Exactly.
And that's why I think that, you know, I would, you know, I give recognition to Marquita Bradshaw, who, as you know, won the United States Senate, you know, the Democratic nomination for United States Senate for the state of Tennessee in 2020. And she ran on a platform of environmental justice and how clean air, clean water, clean soil is something that every human being needs. It doesn't matter your ethnicity, your nationality, you know, water is life. And, you know, people didn't believe that that message would resonate with Tennesseans. And she proved with millions of people voting for her that it did. Because even when you talk about rural communities, when you talk about pig farms, I grew up in a rural community. There was a chicken farm not too far from where I live. You know, you dealing with those chemicals centered, I'm about to call some names, you know, dealing with those chemicals, you know, the men and women, the ladies and gentlemen who work there would lose their hair, skin would turn colors. You know, you would have strange diseases that were difficult to diagnose. You'd have to go to a large city because rural hospitals were closed and could not give proper diagnosis, and you needed a specialist, breakdowns of the healthcare system, so on and so forth, because these are working class people. And so all of these things come together, and it might look different in an urban setting than it does in a rural, but the impact is still the same. People are being punished simply because they are not rich.
So very quickly, wanted to pivot back to the education part of it, because when you were talking about, when Lana asked a question about asthma, and you said that, you know, it contributes to students being out of school. I noted actually from a tweet on your timeline that Tennessee's education, they're 44th out of 51, including a District of Columbia. And so, and student funding has been an issue. What is it that can be done in your view, as far as making education about more than just reading and writing, or CRT, which is, you know, one of the hot buzzwords? I mean, there's so much that encompasses that, right? There's health, there's mental health, there's physical health, there's funding to make sure, that the proper resources are there. What can be done to help Tennessee along with that?
Yep. So I have, recommended two things that the legislature act upon immediately. One, there's already been some conversations about this, a weighted school formula. I was talking about that when I ran for State House in 2020. Basically, what that means is that you adjust the per pupil formula so that, if a student has greater needs, then they get greater resources.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of that is you got to put more money in student funding. When we look at other schools and, communities, states, that are getting amazing outcomes for students, they're spending more money per student.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is, it's difficult to educate a child with $10,000.
True.
You could hand $10,000 to the average parent and say, okay, go. They'll say, this is all I have. When you get through
Right.
clothes, food,
Right.
children spend over 8 hours a day in a school, and you have to pay people fair wages for the work that they do, particularly during COVID, and so the weighted school formula is part of it because it's, again, about acknowledging that each student comes in with their own unique needs and the formula should accommodate that. But the other part of it is that we have this very large rainy day fund. I'm a person who I believe in saving money, right? I work in a nonprofit space. I'm a mom of 2 little ones under 5. You can't just waste money, right?
Right.
But there becomes a point where when you withhold resources so long, you have to expend far more money to bring it back to an equitable place than if you had just kept funding it at the appropriate level based on inflation to begin with. And so it's like you keep underfunding the 1,700 schools we have in the state of Tennessee that are working overtime to meet the needs of students, and yet you don't put any more money in it. And so what do you think happens? You have schools that are crumbling because they don't have enough money to update the schools. Well, you want 21st century technology, well, that costs 21st century money. And so it's one of those where there's a massive disconnect where people think the amount of funding that's going to a school is meeting the needs of students. And before COVID, it was not. And, oftentimes people will mention, well, Tennessee hasn't made a lot of investments in education. That should be enough. And I remind people, baby, it's a new class of children that enter the school system every year. People are still having babies. And so you might have invested in the year where, I'll use it where little Ruby was a 5th grader and now she's a 12th grader. But little Ruby has 4 other sisters who coming from the same household in the same community where little Ruby came from. And you got to fix all of them too. So, the funding is not like, okay, you're going to help children in kindergarten. It'll all be done by the time they're in 12th grade, because every year children are moving to Tennessee from other states. Children are coming to the United States from other countries.
Right.
We have a 33% transient rate just in Shelby County. At 1 in 3 children are going to move around the county because parents are looking for affordable housing.
Right.
So, so again, it's one of those where if you don't work in a district, I worked in a district, I work with budgets. That's what I did for a living. Sometimes folks don't believe that the money is, it's enough. It's not. And we have a very large rainy day fund that's B with $1 billion. I think that we can make between that and the American Rescue Fund and ESSER Fund. I think this is the 5 or 10 year sprint where Tennessee can really go from being, race to the bottom to actually raising student achievement and at least getting in the 20s. So,
Right.
Man.
I have bold dreams for what is possible for our state.
I love it.
And we have the resources.
Right.
We have the resources.
That rainy day fund with the B, that's huge. You have a lot of states that do not have that type of fund to be able to tap into for emergencies or otherwise.
Or if they do, they're doing other things with it.
And that's the thing. It's like, if this is not the rainy day COVID, where we've lost thousands of Tennesseans to COVID-19, thousands more are still dealing with the after effects of COVID. Millions of Tennesseans do not have access because, we did not take the Affordable Health Care Act. We don't have affordable access to affordable health care in our state. You have hospital closures at record rates in rural communities. There was a point where during COVID, they're stopped at a certain point, they just are not reporting on it, but people are still having to drive hours and hours and hours and are dying in our ERs because by the time they get there, they're just so far gone in terms of their symptoms from COVID. And this is, not including all the other things that people put off taking care of that now they're coming back to our hospitals and doctors and medical system to get that taken care of. So, we, at a certain point, we have to say all life is precious. right? We can't just say there's an acceptable loss revenue-wise that we can tolerate in terms of human life. That is not what I believe one of the principles, that should be the principles of leadership or of how we should be leading in our communities. So.
Right. You would think so. Doesn't seem to be the Republican motto. Like that's
but they are on the ballot. They are
on the ballot.
They are on the ballot.
Yeah.
And it is, you can get registered to vote, and it's time to do something. And that's what we're about. We're about action, because we know what the challenges are. It's just time to keep, continue to persevere and activate on the things we know will make things better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of that, it appears that a lot of the challenges with getting people motivated to vote is they don't think that the government is working for them. They don't think that even with local government, they don't see you. They don't see the politicians. They don't see you in the neighborhoods. They only see you in the neighborhoods when you want their vote, when you're knocking on their door. How do you bridge that gap? How do you make those people feel like they're not invisible, that you do care, that you do see them and you do hear them?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of things. One, we just got to get more regular people elected. I think there's something to be said about, when you see someone that run for office, it makes you pay a little bit more attention. You're like, oh, okay, that's what's up.
Right.
There are a lot of people who probably voted for the first time because they saw, a Black woman on the ballot for vice president, or were fired up to vote. We've seen in Georgia, Stacey Abrams, was at a So Def concert the first time she ran, you just have to tap into the energy of the community that you're in. And, it's one of those where also we have to acknowledge that in the Black community, we have to do a better job of making sure our brothers and sisters and cousins go vote. And not just when we're mad, not just when we don't feel like Black Lives Matter, but every single time. I'll use Memphis as an example. We have a DA race that is on the ballot, for the May 3rd, 2022 primary. Our DA race, the term is 8 years, one of the longest in the country. The individual who is in the seat right now, who's Republican, there's a whole book named Charged written about her. There are cases like Darius Stewart, where, she is trying our little Black boys and little Black girls and sending them to prison as adults. And it's so egregious that her data has stood out at a national level. And yet she won district attorney or, attorney general for the state, right? Because we have a Republican supermajority. So I say all that to say, we have to have more Black people running for DA. We have to have more Black people running for judge. We have to have, and all these good folks going to law school. Now everybody got loans. I'm like, oh, y'all got loans. Public service is a way to serve, and the other part of it is, it's easy to blame the government because you don't have to put a face on it.
Right.
But it's also one of those things where power doesn't just walk into your hands. You have to take it.
Right.
And you take it by taking back the power around your vote. If your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to take it away. Absolutely. And we're just giving it away. I was like, if it was a bag of money, you'd hold on to it.
Right.
You'd be like, you stand back,
Right.
So we have to treat our vote like it's a bag of money, because that's what it is. Our vote tells people what matters, what doesn't, how the money gets spent, how the policy gets written. And it can't be one of those where if you make people feel like they got to beg for your vote and they figure out a way to get around and get elected without having to beg you for your vote, then you got to pick a different strategy.
Right.
And that's the thing. We just have to collectively decide this is the generation where we are picking a different strategy. I take my daughter to the voting booth with me. I get my I voted sticker. I post it online. People might make fun of that. But again, if people don't see us voting, then why would they vote? If I don't see my auntie voting who's got a good job and a college degree, then why would I go vote?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And vote in every election.
Every election.
Look at 3 election cycles pretty much on the ballot.
Yeah.
Something in the spring, something in the summer, and something in the fall every year.
Just vote.
And most elections go uncontested. They're just people who run and they will be in these positions for decades. Yeah. And when you look at the requirements, it says basically some version of you got to be 18, a United States citizen, and have lived in your community at least a year. or
Yeah.
you pay a fee or something like that. In Tennessee, all you need is 25 signatures from registered voters in your district to get your name on the ballot. And
Wow.
yet we have elections where Black people live in those communities, and yet they folks are not even contesting these races. And all you
Wow.
need is 25 signatures. You can walk up and down your street into the Kroger and get your 25 signatures of registered voters in your neighborhood.
Go on to the Piggly Wiggly and go on.
Listen, stroll up to the Publix with your sub and be like, hi, my name is Ruby. I'm running for, but that's what it takes. You got to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If complaining on social media ain't working for you this cycle, do something different.
Exactly. I don't get it. They're out there. We want reparations. We want reparations. You vote? No.
Got to go vote for it, because even if we put it on the ballot.
Right. How's it going to happen? Like,
you got to go vote for it.
Give you a money tree and like reparations are going to grow from the tree. Like, it doesn't happen.
No. And then even when we get it, we want to fix the tax code so that,
Right.
We got our work cut out. We need more people to run for office. Let's go.
So a couple of things that you said, which I think is very important, is, getting out there and having people that have our backs, electing more judges, because they oftentimes sit on the bench for decades, running unopposed. You don't know who they are, and we don't know how bad their records are. And I said this recently, until you see things like Kyle Rittenhouse's trial and the judge that presided over that. We also need more, regardless of the distrust, we need more people of color to become law enforcement. We need to be able to police our own communities. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And then as far as representation, you have a pact, Elect Black Women.
Yes.
And one of the things that you talked about was getting Black women elected in rural areas. Tell us why that is so important.
So in the midterms, what's going to be really, really important for Democrats across the board at every level, no matter where there is an election taking place, is we just have to do better. We have to have candidates on the ballot for every single race. I don't care if it is Republican 15. We need Democrats on the ballot, because we got to let people know that, hey, we are here, we are working. It's not just, everything can't rest on President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris's shoulders, right? They are not, they're two human beings who have immense, influence. However, we have to do something different this cycle down ballot, because that's where every great leader gets their start. Not everybody starts as governor. And so, that's why you need to invest in rural communities, because the vast majority, first of all, we act like there ain't Black people in rural communities, which is very odd. Every time they show like farms and land, and I'm like, y'all know Black people farm.
Right.
So when you think of places like Mississippi, right, it is predominantly rural. It doesn't have a ton of major cities. And so, like when you look at the census data, and again, now that we're still getting data rolling in, but southern states like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia have the greatest number of Black women who live in the communities and in the electorate, but they're they live in the community, but they're not represented in the electorate proportionately. And so that's why investing in rural communities is going to be the work, because at the end of the day, if presidential elections are decided by a few million votes, we need the votes in rural communities, because if gerrymandering and redistricting simply cuts up Democratic strongholds like Memphis and dilutes us as a voting bloc, then we still need every Democrat, even if it's a precinct with 25 Democrats at it. We need all 25 of those votes, because when you combine those together, that's when you get momentum to do what, of course, Ms. Bradshaw's campaign did for the primary, and then to really, Bredesen got very, very close in terms of his election with Marsha Blackburn. So we got our work cut out, but it's not impossible. We just have way more people who do not vote than people who actually do.
Right. There's still more votes out there. Speaking of powerful Black women and Black girl magic, SCOTUS, who do you think he should nominate? Do you think he's going to go with Jackson?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Eiffel?
So for the Supreme Court of the United States. So first of all, I am patiently waiting, because I hope this is the moment in my lifetime where a Black woman, of course, is nominated. I think that the challenge is, so I've had chance to, sit with a number of Black women PACs and organizations across the country, waiting for this moment, because once that individual is decided, we are going to be excited to support her. But there's so many talented Black women who could be asked, because the pipeline is rich. As we continue to prove over and over and over, when it comes to politics, there is no shortage of talent when it comes to Black women. It's just a matter of who will be the first. And whoever that woman is, we'll stand in solidarity with her, because we know how hard it is to be the first, right? You have to be perfect. You have to represent a variety of issues, whether it is your lived experience or not. And so we just want to, stand in solidarity, because this is the moment that I am hoping. And so whoever it is, I'm going to be excited, but I also am confident that we have a litany of Black women who more than meet the qualifications to fit the role. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yes. And it's not Biden checking a box, doing a quota. She will be very qualified, probably overqualified, definitely more qualified than
Kavanaugh.
Amy Kavanaugh. Like,
the Amy one is tough, because, she did her undergraduate studies in Memphis. And so, it's one of those where.
And Amy was telling women that to go drop their babies off at the fire station. You don't have to be a mom.
It's tough, but I say all that to say, we are just hopeful that, of course, we want another woman on the Supreme Court. We want someone who's lived experiences. They are a subject matter expert on a different set of lived experiences.
Right.
And when you really read the resumes of a number of women, Black women who are already appointed as federal judges, I mean, their credentials are deep. And so I'm excited, because I know whoever it might be, we're going to be blown away by how amazing she is.
Yeah.
I think we'll see an impact. I really think that because Black women bring a perspective that just cannot really be ignored.
It's a force. It's a force. Yeah. I'm excited too. Yay. So let's switch gears. Unless you have any other questions on it.
No, this is great. This is a very invigorating conversation.
Yes.
I love it.
Well, let's switch gears. Let's go on to the lightning round, which is never a lightning round. It's always so, but let's go. First question. What TV character or movie were you afraid of as a kid?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I love horror movies. I think so. I might date myself. Anything that had anything to do with Saw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, anything like that.
Oh yeah.
No, thank you. No. Stephen King was very there. There was a stretch where there was a lot of. I was like, oh my gosh.
In his books, right?
Pet Cemetery. I'm good. No, thank you.
That's funny. I see. I love
great
this
author.
Saw.
Can't do the movies.
There's a new Saw.
Exactly.
Chris Rock. Like, no, I don't care. What is the weirdest non-breakfast food you've eaten for breakfast?
Oh gosh, king cake.
Now, what is king cake?
So I'm from Louisiana, and during Mardi Gras, it's the king cakes with the sugar and purple and gold on it with a baby in it.
I've seen them before.
Oh, okay.
So divine. It's Mardi Gras season, and so we have one on New Year's Day, and so when there's one in the house, I'm just like munching on it all day. It's like I get up, have a cup of coffee, like some chicory coffee, and a piece of king cake. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was delicious.
Yes.
And it really does. It really does. Childhood actor or actress crush?
Childhood actor or actress crush? I don't think he was acting back then. Hold on, let me see. This is kind of hard. Usher keeps coming to mind, but I don't think
that's okay.
I don't think he was acting, right? I think he was just singing and dancing. I don't think he was like acting.
Well, kind of, I guess. If he's dancing, he's kind of like
crush.
Exactly. I always think about mine, but mine would really date me. What was yours, Honor? Did you have one?
I had a few. Mine would date me too.
I know. I'm like.
Music was
Everybody wants to
changing a lot.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Music was changing a lot. I mean, you had boy bands, but that wasn't, that wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
And then like acting and singing felt kind of separate. You like Michael Jackson was like the person who had figured out how to do everything.
Mhm.
Right.
And so it's like, but he was my sister. So I'm like, I like him too, but
yeah. No, but Usher is definitely.
I like that shit from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, who is that?
Listen, he could sing and dance.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes.
All right. Oh, well, here we go. Favorite song as a teen?
Oh. Okay. My very first CD, Mary J. Blige's My Life. So what the 411 was the 411. That's it.
That's great.
First CD. Thank you, Aunt Eileen.
Wow.
Love it.
Again, I'm not going to say what my first CD was. Like, what?
But you know what? I
8-track tape. No, I'm just kidding.
But then my students check me. They'd be like, nah, that's not a thing. I'm like, oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
The worst job you ever had?
I once stole tuxedos.
Ooh.
That was pretty rough. I mean, it was
in a tuxedo shop.
Yeah, like in the mall. I didn't work there very long. But it wasn't the job was terrible because I mean, I was in high school, so you see people, but the guy I worked with, it was I like he was very strange. He was very excited just about firearms and things like that. And I remember being like, oh my goodness.
Firearms.
I was really into firearms. And I just never met someone young, very interested. Like he was older than I was because he was the manager of the store, but he was very interested in firearms. And it was very strange. It was around 9/11. So I was also like, it made me very uncomfortable. So that was definitely not a good work experience. So I didn't last long. I was like, I don't think this is for me.
And I totally thought that was going somewhere else. I thought you were so excited about like measuring people's seams.
That is not my life. My life is real people. It has all led me to this moment. I tell people, I'm like, listen, I have had some experiences that, it's like, what I need to, that's why I volunteer so much. That's why I give so much because, I've met some interesting people and I'm like, this is why you need to work and serve in your community because people
it's true. Yeah.
Interesting experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Last show you binged watched.
Oh.
I know you're very busy, so this is going to be hard.
Well, so my husband keeps up with our TV. He's very organized. He has like a checklist because I never know. I'm like, what are we watching? And he's like, we're episode this, and this. So we watched a bunch of stuff. Hold on, it's going to come to me. We didn't binge. Oh, Abbott Elementary.
Good show.
So good.
I like that show.
So spot on. So we both worked in education. And so we were like, oh, this. A teacher definitely helped write that show. It is very, very good.
It is
very accurate. So
yes.
That's what we've been binge. Like only they release episodes, you can't really binge watch. So I've let a few go by and then I binge watch and catch up. So
oh man, listen.
Hopefully that counts.
Yeah.
But
it's the best thing on.
And like, Harlem. I think Harlem was a Megan Good.
Yes. That one's amazing. There's another all Black cast too. It's just like Harlem. And I'm not going to remember.
I know exactly what you're talking about because there's a guy in that show. He looks like my husband.
Your husband.
Because
every man in that show was handsome. Like
I was like, oh, that's what I said. I was like, oh wow, you have a doppelganger.
Yeah,
but I can't think of the name of the show now.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I am not good with show names or actor and actresses. So pop culture quizzes, I'm probably not the person.
Yeah, me either. And I just looked it up because I forgot. I just know that there was 2 shows that came out with like a strong Black cast, and it was Harlem, and it was Who Rules the World.
Yes.
Rules the World or something like that. Yeah. That's the one.
That sounds right. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Twitter
Okay.
universe, if that is not correct, charge it to our
Let us
head.
know.
They will let us know. They're
But
probably
not
in
our
the,
hearts.
they're in the chat right now saying, "What are you talking about? This is not right." Oh,
Oh,
hi,
no.
Teray.
Oh,
We'll
everybody
get
is
back on
shouting out
task.
Ozark.
Oh, everyone's saying Ozark. Yes. So we
Yeah.
do have a chat that has been going along while you were interviewing and talking. So
Yes, I need to get my
Mm-hmm.
Ozark game up. I see it all over social, so I'll make sure we add it to our list.
Really,
yes,
really good.
I finished it. Okay. What food could you not live without?
Oh.
And you can't say king cake.
I cannot coffee. I don't know if it counts as a food group, but it is for me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Food group.
I will eat it in lieu of food at any point. Yeah.
Yes.
I've done that.
Yeah.
I
If
love
I'm
it.
hungry at
done
night,
that.
I'm like, I shouldn't have food, but I shouldn't have
I just
coffee,
love the
but I'm gonna
taste.
have coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what time of day. It's just something very relaxing. Some people are tea drinkers. Coffee is my preferred.
I can't
Yeah.
do tea. It doesn't give enough flavor for me.
Yeah.
Or
it's-
kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although if we're talking about foods, I will not give up mac and cheese.
That's what's up.
I
Big
absolutely,
mac and cheese. I'm hoping you're talking about.
of course.
It sounds good. Those of us, who cheese ain't our friend, we're like,
I
we're
don't
standing in
I'm so
solidarity.
sorry. I'm sorry. I bake a
know
mean dish of mac and cheese.
Send us pictures. Tweet us pictures.
Right.
I
It
love
looks
it.
good. It looks
Yes,
good.
exactly.
So let's wind down. If you were famous, what would you be famous for?
Helping elect Black women.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
If all your clothes had to be one color, what color would you choose?
Navy.
Nice. That's different.
Yeah,
I like
choose
that.
Navy. Not quite black because it goes with everything.
Right. Exactly.
Navy's
I
the new
like
black.
that.
For sure.
I like that. All right. Last question. If you could erect a statue in Memphis, what would it be of? Or who? Or what would it say?
I always like the statue of the girl on Wall Street facing the bull. It would be some version of something like that. But it will be to commemorate all the children who've been involved in the fight for human rights and civil rights in our country. I think that, far too often we've recognized like the bombing in Birmingham, the church bombings and things like that. But we don't also acknowledge how right now we have, young activists and organizers who, the last few years have just really found their place and their voice. And that's wonderful because, the world is moving faster. COVID in a very short period of time has changed electoral politics forever. Before COVID, virtual things like this and stuff were optional or the bells and whistles. Now it's a must have, whether you're running for United States Senate or school board. And so, young people are really are going to play a critical part in the next few years of electoral politics because of our reliance now on technology. And also, they have something to say. They're inheriting a world with a broken economy, an endemic. If the way COVID going, we just working between surges at this point. Inflation and climate change, healthcare, and so they're inheriting a lot of problems, but we're also energized with solutions. So yeah, definitely some version of a little black girl like facing off against like institutional oppression, systemic oppression, gender oppression. Just standing with her puffs, not ponytails, puffs.
Her puffs.
She's gonna have a natural. What I'm saying?
Stop playing.
That's
And
it.
it's funny you said that. I was before we got on, I was watching MSNBC and they were showing, and I guess the Texas students had some type of town hall today in response to them banning all of these books. And there were young kids speaking out. I think it's Texas. They're doing it in Florida. It's just catching on. And one of the girls, white girl too, and she got up and she basically said, if you don't like the books, why ban it? Just don't read it. just put it down. Like, you don't have to take the books away. Just put the book down. And she's right. Like, it's just that simple.
Right.
But unfortunately, one of the vestiges of white supremacist culture is the belief that you can pass a law and tell people you can't read a certain thing. I mean, if that is not a vestige of Jim Crow slavery, where Black people were by law forbidden to learn how to read and write. And, you know, our country, unfortunately, we are still hopeful that we will learn from our history that you know, when you try to ban and keep Black people from learning to read and write, we created the freedom schools. And we still have freedom schools to this day that train here in the state of Tennessee on Alex Haley's farm and are deployed all over the country, providing summer school instruction to marginalized communities all over. And so, you know, every time, you know, legislators take it upon themselves to impose their own personal values that are rooted in the deficit, you know, a deficit-based beliefs that are rooted in control and that are rooted in controlling, you know, the experience of others, then, you know, movements find a way around it. And so again, I'm always proud of young people when they stand up and speak out, whether you're 5 years old or you're 50 years old. You know, advocating is something that you're never too young or too old. And Texas, again, you got people running who are saying, you know, enough is enough and I'm tired.
Right. This is great. Thank you so much, RPD.
Yes, Fred. Yes, come through. That's how you know you're in the circle. You're in the family.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming through. We learned so much about Tennessee, and I hope everyone else did too. Now, can you please tell everyone where they can donate for sure, because donating is important. And as we told you guys the last time we had a guest, you don't have to be in Tennessee to donate. You can be anywhere in the United States. You know, every Democratic seat counts. They're all important.
Yes.
They absolutely are. Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, statistically, Black women just don't receive donations at the same level of any of our peers. And so I tell everyone, when you make an investment, whether it's in my candidacy or another Black woman who's on the ballot in your community, when you make an investment this early, it has a causal impact. You statistically change our trajectory on the election trail, on the campaign trail, when you donate early, when you donate, you know, before Black History Month, Women's History Month, because we're able to bank that money and make sure that we can have the best staff, the best volunteers, and that we actually reach voters and fire Democrats up, because you got to give early if you want Democrats fired up and people voting. And so anything you donate now is going to infrastructure building. We are reaching out to volunteers. You'll see it on our Twitter. Links to register to volunteer, to get involved, to sign up for emails, because that's what we're doing. So if you go to my profile, R Powell-Dennis, TN, on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, you'll see a link there in my biography. If you go to my website, rubypowelldennis.com, you'll see a donate button, but click, and I'm just asking everybody to sign up and be a monthly donor. Sign up to give a reoccurring $50. Believe it or not, that is our path to victory. If we can get, you know, 100 people to give $50 a month between now and our general election, that takes care of my mail. That makes sure that we can reach all the Democrats in our new state Senate district with a message of hope, optimism, that we are fighting for health care, and that, you know, we're not just fighting for the people in Memphis and Shelby County, but everyone in Tennessee. Because when Black women do all right, we take care of everybody else. That's just how we're wired. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, any contributions that folks can give. Last time I ran, I was blessed. I had donations from 36 states out of 50, because people all over the country invested in my candidacy. And because they did that, I'm able to run again in a seat where we wouldn't have otherwise had a Democrat running. And so, you know, I'm thankful, because we could continue to build infrastructure with investments that we received tonight. We can continue to build on the work, you know, because again, they're attacking Democratic strongholds, and I'm flipping a seat that is red to blue. And again, I'm running against an incumbent who's indicted. And so I'm still up against a fundraising machine, even though the incumbent is running with an indictment over his head. So
It seems
our
like
Powell-Dennis,
criminality
Tennessee,
just spurs them even more.
It
seems like
really does.
you know, if the minute there's an indictment or there's
Yeah.
some allegation,
That's how they
it's
raise
amazing
money.
how you make money off of
Yeah.
doing criminal acts.
Oh, but it gets,
Well,
but he's
if
done
you're
so
them.
much more. I mean, he voted against taking slavery out of our state constitution. He's been in his seat for 10 years. And I tell everybody, if you're in a leadership position for 10 years and it's no better than before you got there, then it's time for change. And that's okay.
Mhm.
Change doesn't mean that people are evil people. It just means that, you know, it's time for Senate District 31 to have someone who, you know, can take the district to a different direction,
Mhm.
who can partner with others around the state. I'm already doing that work. I'm a part of a leadership group called Leadership Tennessee Next, where it's people from all different walks of life who are all committed to creating and working cross-functionally for our state. You know, and you don't have to, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. These are folks from the the public sector, the private sector. And that's the type of stuff I have a track record of being involved in. I'm involved in the junior league, so when I speak about issues of Black women, it's not just Black women in a Black context. It's living and moving through the world normalized as a human being, and just creating policy and having leaders who understand how to just normalize and support and create policies that work for everybody, not just some people.
Right.
Got to normalize that. Not some people. You got to normalize
right.
helping everybody.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. This is great. RPD, y'all heard it. Yay. You have to come back later on in your campaign and let us know how you're doing. We really would appreciate that. Any closing remarks, Honor?
Yes.
Just that it has been great to hear what is going on in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Also, you didn't mention this, but your PAC also has a Twitter feed at Elect Black Women.
Okay.
Go follow both.
Yes.
There, you guys have a number of events that are happening. You are endorsing women, showcasing Black women, and that just needs to be made louder. It's got to be made louder. So thank you for doing that.
Yes.
And if you are a Black woman on the ballot, or you know a Black woman on the ballot, tell them to go to electblackwomenpac.com and complete their endorsement application today. Our team is working so hard to help as many Black women who are running at every level of government as possible, but you can't get help if you ask too late. You need it early. So go ahead. If you know a Black woman running, encourage her to apply for our support. We're excited to get to know her better and to connect with her.
Oh my God, this was fun. Thank you so much, Ruby. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good
And
luck.
I want to give you your flowers. Can I give y'all flowers before we go? Can I do that?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for the work that you do to highlight women, particularly Black women, and just, individuals who are running for office. This is a niche, this is, everybody ain't doing this. And so when I got the opportunity to be a part of what you're doing, it's truly an honor. So I just want to say thank you for highlighting and showcasing us. There's not very many of us when you think about the history of our country and the fact that there are over 500,000 elected positions in our country. So we're just a small group of Black women who are doing really, really important work. So I just wanted to thank you personally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone.
It's 10 o'clock.
Right on time.
There we have it.
I love it.
Thank you. Good night. Good night,
Good night,
everyone.